attractive person. But if there's anything that my research in human behavior has shown me time again and again and again, in most cases, pain, the need to avoid pain, is a greater motivator for people than the desire for pleasure. I hate to say that because I love to do things for proactive reasons, but I also have found that people do almost anything to avoid pain. Now, I got a question for you. What happens when two pains come up side by side? What happens when, if you do something, it's going to be painful, but if you don't do it, it's going to be painful? Which action will you take? For example, you might say, well, gosh, if I don't go up to this lady and meet her, then I'll never meet her again. I'll never have a relationship, and I'll miss out, and you have the pain of that. But on the other side, your brain's saying, but if you do go up and she rejects you, my gosh, then you're really going to have pain. So what determines your behavior is which pain is more intense. Does that make sense? I'm sorry to sound so simplistic, but let's talk about what really drives human behavior. And I think there are certain basic fundamentals that drive our behavior. And when we understand them, we can start to utilize them to change our life. And if we don't understand them, then what we do is we keep running up against the brick wall. Have you experienced that? Where you're trying to make a change, trying to make a change, trying to make a change, but it never happens. Why? Because your internal associations about pain and pleasure haven't changed. In other words, you keep thinking, God, if I do this, it's going to mean a ton of pain. And so you stop short. I mean, a classic example is in relationships. You know, a lot of people in life get this bug. They say, God, I want to be in a relationship. Why? Because they think being in a relationship would mean lots of what? Pleasure, love, happiness, security, being close, all those special feelings, spirituality, right? That feeling of oneness. Then they get in a relationship and they say, I don't want to be in a relationship, right? All of a sudden they begin to think relationship means pain, or worse. They think a relationship is the most incredible thing in the world. They love this person. They give 1,000% of themselves. They think about them constantly. And then as time goes by, something happens. And this person, let's say, leaves them or breaks up with them or smashes their heart into a billion pieces. Has this ever happened in your lifetime? If it hasn't, it probably will. That sounds real supportive, doesn't it? Well, listen, in our lifetimes, if you're going to have relationships and you're not already in one you're committed to for life, there's a chance of future disappointment. Let's just say that's possible. I'm not one of those people that says just be a positive thinker all the time. Some people tell you in life to succeed, what you're supposed to do is look at the weeds in your garden and say, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. Hey, they'll take your garden. My view is say there's going to be weeds, so pull the suckers out and move on. Don't get all hung up and go, oh my God, there are weeds in my garden. How come God did this to me? Just move on. Just realize that's part of life. And part of life is there may be times in your lifetime, would you be willing to buy this theory, where people may disappoint you? That is, you may have different expectations about how they should behave than they have. If that's true, you're going to have to learn to deal with it. The challenge is this. Most people have not learned how to deal with it. Most of us don't consciously look at what we link pain and what we link pleasure to, and so our lives are in reaction instead of in control. So for example, let's say you had a great relationship, somebody you really loved, gave 100% as we started to talk about, and then all of a sudden one day something bad happens. They cheated on you, they left you, they lost interest, they were less motivated or attracted than you were. What happens for some people is they have this thing called pain at this moment. And what they link up in their mind is relationships equal pain. Now there's a problem, because also in their mind they have this other association in their nervous system, and that association is relationships equal pleasure. So what happens in the future? Well, for a long time this person will probably avoid relationships. You know, they won't get too attracted, they won't express themselves real fully, or they'll be a little bit more closed down. Does this sound like somebody you know? Maybe somebody you know personally? And then what happens is eventually, you know, maybe some of the pain wears off. And they see somebody and they get attracted or they develop a neat relationship and it starts to grow. But there's a point in the relationship when it's going really, really well, when all of a sudden that person begins to sabotage the relationship. Now, have you ever done that? Have you ever done that with success? Where you're really starting to make things happen and all of a sudden you do some stupid things, like you say something you shouldn't say, or you do something you know you shouldn't do, or you don't show up for a key meeting, or you treat somebody harshly, you didn't deserve to be treated harshly. Usually it's because inside your mind, something has happened and your brain's going, oh my gosh, I'm getting all this pleasure. But I know what's happening next. Relationships will equal pain eventually, so I better get out quick before the pain gets here. Does that make any sense? The bottom line is we have to control what we associate pain